Welcome to our podcast and strap in for Movie Monday. Hi, I'm Minky Madison.
And I'm Jack Green.
Today on Movie Monday, we discuss the romance dramedy Marriage Story, starring Adam Driver and Scarlett Johansson. The synopsis is Charlie and Nicole are a New York couple with a young son who are trying to remain civil during their tumultuous divorce. So, what did you rate it?
I gave it 4 kernels.
That's good. I actually ended up giving it 5. It was pretty great.
Oh, yeah, well, I agree. It was a hard decision. I could have went 5. It's not my typical movie that I would seek out, so maybe that's why it's not a full rating. But it did very, very well. Scored very high for me.
Right, yeah. Okay, stop and watch the movie first now, or strap in for major spoilers. Did you have any favorite lines?
I didn't have favorite lines, but I felt like the dialogue in the movie was really strong. So I really couldn't pick out any one thing. It was just the dialogue of Charlie, the Barbers really. So Charlie Barber and Nicole and his son.
Mm-hmm.
All their interactions between each other felt authentic to me. And
Yeah.
exactly how people behave in a relationship. They did a really great job of capturing that, which really makes the movie great. It flows very well and naturally. It doesn't feel boring or have long gaps of,
Yes,
uneventful
I agree with you.
stuff.
Yeah, definitely.
Because you think about it in a way, what happens to them is no different than what happens to many people in life. So why would you want to watch it, like for an over 2-hour movie? That's exceptionally long for 2 hours on something that happens every day to people you know. But they filmed it in a way that was really interesting and added depth, I think. So we can get into some of that.
I agree with you. It had such great dialogue that if I quoted all my favorite lines, it would be like half the movie.
Mm-hmm.
So the whole movie is amazing. Just watch it basically. But I just wrote a couple random ones down. Why is there always a flirty grip? It made me laugh. And then the other one was, I'm sorry, but am I paying for this joke?
I do remember that one.
Yeah. And then the ending line made me cry. It was really sad and touching and like I can relate to it, I guess. And it said, and I'll never stop loving him, even though it doesn't make sense anymore.
Yeah, it was a sad ending, a realistic ending.
Yeah.
Not the typical fairy tale, because that's not what life is. Where people get back together and the hurtful things we say to each other are forgotten. It lives with you.
Mm-hmm.
So it's both tragic, but I wouldn't have it any other way in that case.
Yeah, that's actually a good way to put it. So as far as pros and cons go, I only have one con. How about you? Do you have a lot?
No, really. Like same as you. 3, I believe.
Okay, maybe let's start with our cons then, and then we can gush about it after.
Yeah. So one of the things I really didn't like, and I felt put the movie in a false sense of jeopardy for me in the beginning, was the lawyers, and in particular, the wife meeting with her lawyer, basically, which is played by Laura Dern, I believe.
Yeah, that's so funny. We have the same con.
Oh yeah, I definitely agree with you there. I hadn't seen her in a while. Laura Dern was in a Star Wars movie recently, well, semi-recently.
Oh.
I had just seen her in Jurassic Park in the 90s, so it was surprising.
That's what she's from. I knew she was familiar. I couldn't place her. That's funny.
Yeah, she did great back then. So I was like, I thought I would see her in a lot of stuff, and
Yeah.
we didn't. So it was quite shocking.
You know what's funny though? I've thought that before. I'm like, man, I've never seen this person in anything for a long time. And then I look at their IMDb page and they've been doing a ton of shit. Like just for whatever reason, I haven't seen the movies, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm sure she's been in a ton of stuff. It just happens to be nothing that I've seen.
Right. Or she just really hasn't done anything. Some people, they take time off to be with their family for a few years or whatever, and then they get back into it. So that could have been the situation too.
Yeah, I'd have to look. I'm not sure. But yeah, I think she did actually have kids. I'm just guessing here, but I thought that was accurate. She actually was having a family and everything, so that's why she doesn't have a huge career. But yeah, so that part just bothered me. It felt like it drugged a little bit, and
Mm-hmm.
I was like, I don't know if I'm gonna like this.
It's so funny. I felt exactly the same way. So we must be right, because we both had, I mean, the movie's very long, like you said, and for us both to have the same exact con, I think it probably should have been cut back a little bit. That scene was a little long.
Yeah, it's I don't know if everyone will share that sentiment, but clearly you and I do. Perhaps we're just sensitive to something about that
That could
experience.
be.
I'm not sure.
It's a slight quibble. I mean, if you look at the movie as a whole, the movie is amazing. That was really the only thing, because it was the same with how you felt, where I was like, man, is this gonna drag now? Like, have we hit a wall where it's gonna go boring? And then it didn't. Like, it picks right up, and then no other issues. So
Yeah, I mean, I guess something that I could call a con, but I don't really feel like it is now that I'm actually reflect on it. I like to learn things in movies that I watch, and in particular, in this movie, I learned that when people are getting divorced, one of them can go to many lawyers, and then their spouse is not able to retain that lawyer for themselves.
I didn't know that either.
So yeah, I would like to learn more in movies. I would have liked in this if they included more little tidbits like that didn't weigh it down, but were informative. Maybe I'm a geek. I just enjoy I enjoy learning stuff, and I had no idea that was the case.
It makes sense, like, why they would have that, I guess. But at the same time, it doesn't, because if someone's really vindictive, they really can do, like, what happened in the movie where
Yeah,
they take them all, basically, like, all the good
all
ones
the
anyway.
good ones, all the ones that are close by.
Yeah.
So I guess that can be done with my cons of the movie. Everything else I liked.
Yeah, same for me. It was the only thing I had on my cons list. Since we mostly have pros, you want to take turns doing pros?
Yeah, I don't know how we'll go back and forth. Just like free talk.
Yeah, let's try that. It'll be fun.
Okay. So I love how the movie opens with his letter being read. And then you get to hear hers at the end. So there's actually a nice symmetry to the movie in that sense. And you get these different perspectives on a relationship. So I like that. I thought that was interesting. When I heard it, though, at first I was like, I don't know if it's going to be a good movie, because that was another thing where I was like, it was an interesting introduction, because it was kind of like being read out loud over events happening.
I loved it. It was so unique to me, the way they did it. And it was sweet and funny, too. So you're learning about them more in depth, because marriage is a long time. So they can't really show us the entire marriage, you know what I mean? But in the way that they did it like that, it was excellent. Like, because you got to know them, it was funny, and it was heartbreaking at the end when you realize it's just an assignment and they were forced to do it. And she doesn't even want to read hers, remember?
Yeah. And so it's just really interesting. And the performances were very visceral, of Adam Driver. Particularly that scene where he's in his LA apartment and Nicole comes to visit him, and then they have it out and they have that big fight where he punches the wall. I've seen other people, other critiques of the film saying that was one of the best parts of the movie. And I know why, because it was such a powerful performance. He's very good at like emoting anger. It's probably why they chose him for like other roles, like in Star Wars, where he's Kylo Ren.
Yes, and you know what? I do wonder, because he's so good at it, right? If they actually wrote that into the script after meeting him and seeing how he plays angry, they're like, oh my gosh, this is the best. And do you think that it was already part of the script, or do you think they did it because of how he was acting?
Yeah, I really could go either way. I would like to think that whenever actors are cast for a film, and even during production of a film, if the directors or people involved in making the film see their other roles, that kind of informs them, and then they make adjustments accordingly, or design their character based around what they're going to be having them do. So,
right.
Yeah, it was really interesting. It was brutal. The dialogue's really brutal, and because that's real. That's how people fight. I like the film kind of had a little bit of everything in it. Had some comedy parts, especially with the kid and the social worker. I mean, that was such a disaster. And I like he does that knife trick. Do you remember? And he ends up cutting himself.
Yes, and he's cut himself open. Yes, that was fun. It's funny because you feel his pain.
Yeah.
Like you said, it's so realistic. That was one of my pros as well. It's filmed very realistically, but in a good way. Because there was that movie we tried to watch, remember, and it was so bad. And it was really realistic, too. I don't remember what it was. Amber Alert, maybe?
Yeah.
It was really realistic, but in a bad way. Like, it was really realistic, like, not entertaining at all. You struggled to watch it, and I was like, oh my gosh, we should turn this off. It's terrible, which is sad. I mean,
yeah,
it was for someone, but I didn't enjoy it. So This one, it was filmed very realistically too, and everything was very believable, but it was interesting. Like you actually cared about them. So it's hard to do, but I think they did it really well.
Yeah, and I mean, Charlie's coming from this point of view where he doesn't think his wife is going to do anything nefarious or pernicious in the divorce. She's not going to, try to screw him, in other words. But then she starts to go on to do things like that. And so then he starts to change his behavior accordingly. And I don't know, I felt like the lawyers played into that. Like, they talked bad, because they deal with this on a daily basis. They were saying,
right,
this is how people treat each other in a divorce. This is what you can expect your partner's going to do. And I don't know if there was a bit of self-fulfilling prophecy there, or because they gave them that frame of mind, it actually ended up happening.
Oh, yeah. You're right, because she wasn't going to do any of that. It was the lawyer that kind of pressed it, and then she went with it type thing.
Yeah.
If the lawyer had been a different lawyer, I think it would have had a different outcome entirely. So, yeah, I agree.
Charlie did not have that mindset and actually resisted it for the most part. He retained Jay, the lawyer played by Ray Liotta. Yeah, this really rough, expensive lawyer. He retained him.
I like him. He was hilarious. Which I want to say really quick. I loved the supporting cast because the main cast was amazing to begin with, but I also love the supporting cast. And that's hard to have where everyone in the movie is amazing. And I feel like that happened here. Everyone was excellent, from the main actors to the family to the lawyers. So anyway, I just wanted to add that because him too. He was great.
I second that. Yeah, I share that sentiment as well. But yeah, so he retains this really nasty lawyer after seeing things start to go bad. And I don't know, like, I guess that's how you can tell it's a good movie, because I kind of hate it and liked both of them throughout the movie. I felt competing emotions because I'm seeing what they're going through, but I'm also seeing what they've done. And I don't believe she really ever did anything, right? Like, he actually cheated on her and was selfish, and he ruined the relationship in a way. But I don't know if do you see any blame for her? Like, I don't know if there was anything that she did that brought that about.
That they show to us, not specifically really like anything like cheating or anything like that. But I think maybe there wasn't enough communication. I think she did try to say how she felt like she wanted to move. Remember, I think she wanted to move to LA because of her acting career and everything. Yeah. I got the impression that she kind of mentioned it, but didn't make it clear that this is what I need, so that way they can get a plan into place, because he seemed kind of surprised. Don't you remember where she's telling him this in that big argument that they have? And he's like, no, like, you were happy. Like, we were happy with what we had. You know what I mean? So he wasn't getting the message. So I wouldn't say it's necessarily her fault, but she could have maybe brought it up more in a more realistic way, or like, you know what I mean? Where he knows she's serious. Like, we need to plan to move to LA, or find out for sure if he doesn't want to. That, you know what I mean? More communication.
I understand. And they also made a joke of him saying we're a New York family. He repeatedly said that because they kept saying that the intention was never to stay in New York. So I don't know. It's just like a little bit of comedy there too.
Oh yeah, that's what I love about it. Is it went through all the emotions, the sadness, the terror, and you know what I mean, and the like the good times. Like, it was done so good. Like, I don't even know.
And there was the games that spouses play with each other, where it was the son's Halloween, and she kind of took the son out and let him trick or treat in the type of neighborhood that would be suitable for that. Then he gave him off to him and said they could have that experience too, but based on his location and the son had already went trick-or-treating, it didn't go well. And she knew that would happen. Yeah,
I don't know necessarily that she was being vindictive, but she didn't care. She obviously didn't care how it affected Charlie. She was just more like, well, this is what I want. Because I think the lawyer kind of gave her that mentality. So she was just me first type situation.
Yeah.
But yeah, I felt bad about the costume too, because remember, Charlie had to make it and the money and time into that, and he's just like, yeah, well, I want to be this now. Actually, the conversation in the car is funny too, because he's trying not to be upset, but you can tell that he is. So he's trying to talk his son into it, without yelling at him, basically. It was really good.
Yeah, I don't know. It was, after watching that movie, it gives you a lot to think about, at least in my opinion, because when you're in the context of a relationship and you're in the context of going through a divorce, I would imagine that people go through a situation where they still want to be ethical and moral about how they're handling the situation. But as you can see in the film, it devolves into lying about your partner, because they're lying about you to the court in terms of getting custody and how much you'll pay, and because he was trying to play it straight from the beginning. So I don't know. Do you feel like he was conflicted about that, about lying when he called her an alcoholic?
Yes. I don't think that he had any intention for it to go the way that it did. And he was put into a place where he was kind of cornered where he had to because he was going to lose everything. He was going to lose his son, tons of money, tons, everything. So he had to fight back. I don't think that was what he wanted. And I don't think she wanted that either. Like I was saying, the lawyer kind of pushed that. And she didn't really fight her on it too much because I think she was kind of deep down upset with Charlie. So she wasn't out to get blood, but if that happened, then I guess that's okay. You know, that type of
Yeah,
attitude.
she didn't play on their better natures. That's
Right.
true. But from the lawyer's perspective, they're just out there to win and out there to look good and make money. So which it doesn't come across as good, but that's how it is. They captured that as right as well.
Yeah, they did. Yeah. I'm really happy though that it was funny a lot of the time because otherwise it would be really hard to watch if it was always just depressing and really emotional. But they dotted it with humor. Like when Charlie and Nicole's sister are talking in British accents, then he notices the Manila divorce papers.
Yeah.
So it was like funny, but then tragic. It had a good roller coaster, but I didn't ever feel like they left us hanging. And whoever was involved with the timing was great. Like the editor, I guess, was a really good one.
Sister and her family, it felt like authentic relationship with him, the way they were joking and
yeah,
you know, that really worked well.
Yeah, the closeness with the mom too.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't know, it's just very interesting. It's very good.
And the subtle humor of it too, because there's some like in your face humor that's obvious, but then the subtle stuff, like when the son makes her coffee and then later she drinks it and is like, this is really good, thanks. And then it shows that there's a ton of coffee grounds in her mug. So that made me laugh. And it's something that you might not catch because it's kind of far away. You know what I mean? They didn't like zoom in on the coffee mug or anything, which I like. It's more stuff that you may or may not kind of notice, which actually makes it a good second watch or even third watch because there's so much happening in the background and so much subtle stuff that I probably didn't even notice on my first watch.
Yeah, there was
so.
I mean, the experience of watching this had kind of led me to thinking. And in the past, there was a movie, I believe it's called The Breakup, with Vince Vaughn and I can't remember her name, Jennifer Aniston, I believe. Anyway, I've never seen that, but I know that there's people that have, and that they told me it was very realistic in terms of how people break up, the course of a relationship. So it was kind of like the first part of this, I guess. There's just no marriage and no divorce. They said it was very powerful too, and it was accurate and authentic. So I don't know, it just got me thinking. I was wondering what it would be like to watch that.
Yeah, you know, we can actually watch that because I haven't seen it either. We can give that one a shot and see what we think.
Yeah.
But I also liked that it had some really intense emotional scenes, like you're talking about the bitter argument in the apartment. It was so realistic and so well done that you kind of forget it's a movie, which is what you kind of want when you go to the movies, is to get lost in the story. So they did excellent on that. And early on, how she's unable to cry on the stage, and then stressful argument in the apartment or the house or whatever, and then she goes in the back and cries for real.
Yeah.
It like showed how stressful, because I don't know, I've had situations obviously where my parents got a divorce. I've been through a divorce. I can say as someone who's gone through those things that it's all very accurate. I don't think you need to go through those things to like the movie or feel those feelings during it. You know what I mean? But it's almost scary actually how accurate it was. So it makes me think whoever the writer was actually went through something like that as well.
Yeah, I feel like at least the writers, to be able to write that accurate, you have to be very close to that playing out in your life in some way. But yeah, it's a disturbing movie in a way.
It is, yeah.
I've heard the divorce rate is over 50%, at least in the US. So this is playing out many, many, many times. And I feel like everyone's been touched by divorce probably closely. Either it happened in their family, or it happened to them directly, or it happened to someone they knew, a friend or a coworker. And they can see the changes in that person because it does affect you to the degree by which you share in the relationship. If it's a 30-year marriage to someone you deeply loved, versus a year marriage or 6 months, it's going to be different, and people are different. It's going to have different effects on people.
Also, if you have kids or not.
I was listening to clinical psychologist Jordan Peterson, and they were asking him, with people that are getting divorced, is it better if they stay together if they have kids? And he said generally yes. Children from a solid marriage, who grow up with that, they're better off for it if the parents stay together. He said obviously that there's exceptions. It depends on why they're getting divorced, what type of relationship they have. I don't think he would
Yeah.
consider a deeply abusive physical relationship or something like that.
Yeah, if he or she is beating the other one.
But in terms, they disagree a lot. They fight a lot. Fighting a lot is normal, depending on how you do it. So you want to fight and fight and fight and get to solutions. If you give up, you'll get divorced.
I have mixed feelings about that because my parents growing up were fighting all the time. There was also infidelity, and it was this I don't know what I want situation. So we were all over the place. I was in many different schools. We were moving constantly. There was no stability at all. So I feel like the divorce was a good thing in that situation because, yeah, the divorce is hard. Yeah, there was a lot of stuff that I didn't expect with that. But at the same time, if my parents had stayed together, I wonder if it would have been worse for me seeing that with no stability at all and having this up and down. You know what I mean? At least once they divorced, they both got remarried and it was more normal. So, like they were saying, it does depend on the situation. And I think you don't necessarily have to have physical violence because there's a lot of emotional as well. That's not a good idea for the kids and stuff.
Yeah, it's hard. Like, think about when you're in a relationship, when you're in a marriage. How do you know when to end things? How do you know that what you're going through, how normal is it? How abnormal is it? Can it be overcome? And these are all questions where there's really no solid answer. It depends on how cooperative the couple are, how much they love each other, and what type of problems they're having. So it's situational and it's subjective and it's painful. As a result, it's very painful, I think, because people don't know when to leave. And it's not always mutual. It's rarely mutual. Another person might want to keep trying and another person might not.
Yeah. I did hear too, it takes about 7 times of nearly getting a divorce before you actually do. I'm sure that's not the case for everyone.
I hadn't heard that, but it makes sense. Only under the drastic circumstances probably would the first time.
Right. Yeah, that's true.
Like my husband's a serial killer or something.
You need seven murders and then you're done. No. Because I think everybody who gets in a relationship, they want it to work. The goal is to be together and happy. Like, that's what you want. That's why you're a part of it. So when stuff starts to go wrong, you get worried and you try to fix it and you try to fix it and you try to fix it. And then you almost break up and then you try to fix it again and it's okay for a while. And then, there's certain people that you just rub the wrong way and vice versa. So that's why love-hate relationships are a thing. Because a lot of the time you really have fun and you love them, you know what I mean? But then sometimes you actually don't like them at all and you annoy each other. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just like it's not a realistic relationship at that point. Like you don't mesh well all the time, and that's a problem.
Change.
Yeah, people change too.
I would love to study relationships in a way because you look at people who fell in love as high school sweethearts versus people who meet later in life. And when you're 15 or 16, I doubt you really know what love is. I would like to see how that develops over time because you have people that meet when they're 15 and they're together their whole life. But most people, when they meet at their 15, they have many, many boyfriends and girlfriends.
Yeah.
So what's different about them versus other people?
I think it's what I was mentioning was like the love-hate thing. I think a lot of the divorce issues is it's either a love-hate relationship where it's just these are two people that just cannot, which is funny because actually that's what the horoscope things say, which I don't necessarily believe in those, but there's certain signs that don't get along with each other, they say. A Scorpio doesn't get along with this or, that type of thing. So it's just funny because whether it's horoscope or not, there are certain personalities that just do not work with other personalities. So like with my parents, when they got in different relationships, they fought less. They had a better time. And not that any relationship is perfect, but they were with a more suitable person personality wise. And that's a big deal. So I think maybe a lot of the younger people, they don't get with the right personality and they don't know it.
Yeah. Even with long-term marriages that don't ever see divorce, you still look at those and the quality of happiness in a relationship because you'll talk to a spouse after their partner's passed away, and some of them are quite unhappy, and some are happy. And most are mixed. Some of that's cultural. Maybe divorce wasn't an option for them, or financial. Another reason why it might not be an option for them. So a lot of that, affects it as well.
And religion, of course.
I think part of having a successful relationship is directly connected to when you're growing up, going through the right stages properly, the right psychological stages and psychosocial stages. I feel like you have to know yourself. You have to be honest with yourself. And if you're not, I think those issues are going to affect you, not just in your professional and personal life, but also directly in that arguably most important relationship, which is your marriage. And I feel like a lot of people don't do that. Maybe they're dishonest about who they are. They lie to themselves, and that comes out. I really do think it presents itself in curious and unexpected ways. Because you hear partners talking about each other all the time. My husband does this. My wife does that. I don't understand that. And some of it's just quirks, which is fine. Like that's not really what I'm referring to. But deep rooted psychological trauma and low self-esteem, just any type of personal psychological issues you have can emerge, and then they take on these weird distortions in the context of a relationship. My point being that over time reduces the quality of a relationship. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think that's actually why a lot of first marriages end because a lot is because they were young, but they don't know themselves yet. Or like you said, they lie to themselves like, oh, this will work out because, they're going to work on this and this and this, and I'll work on this, this and this, and we'll be good, So they hope for the best. And then when it doesn't work out, they're already married. So they want to try to make it work. And then it normally fails. But when they get a divorce and then they're in their next relationship, since they already knew what didn't work and what they wanted in the marriage, I think it makes it easier for them to find a suitable partner for the person that they actually are, because now they know what they want. Because I think a lot of it they don't actually know. When you're a teenager, you don't really know what you know what you like, kind of, but I don't think you truly know.
Yeah.
If that's what you mean.
Yeah. I think that's a good point. You're still searching for who you are, and you're trying to adapt yourself to the world and turn that into who you want to be rather than who you are. And then you have another person come along that you're in a relationship with, and they're trying to do the same thing. And you're working at cross odds at that point. It's kind of gotten off trail a little bit, but this is what you're seeing, in the film, basically. Remember how he talked about he was in his 20s and he was hot shit, he said, and he wanted to sleep with all the girls.
Yeah.
So it just, I think that kind of goes in with what we're talking about, right? He didn't experience enough of life. He said he felt she rushed him, and she was saying, well, you could have said no, right? Like he wasn't honest with her. She's
right.
Like, well, I might have been rushing things, but I was being honest with you. This is what I wanted to do. So I don't know. It's just sad.
She wasn't honest about herself either, because she wanted to be in LA and she didn't make that more clear. Like, no, this is really what I want and need. You know what I mean? And she didn't think that through when she got married to him, knowing that they would live in New York. Because it's the whole, like, well, we will. So
yeah, definitely. So I guess that would be her culpability in the outcome of the relationship. I don't, like I said, it's definitely not black and white, and that's what makes it so interesting. And
maybe sorry, I was gonna say maybe some love-hate relationships work, because I'm sure some people make it work and somehow they learn to communicate where it's not an issue anymore. So I don't mean to say that as if you're in a love-hate relationship, but there's no hope for you or anything like that, because I don't know. I'm not a counselor or anything.
Love and hate. I don't know. Like, those are really powerful emotions. So you said it works, right? Like in some situations, it does work.
Oh, I'm saying it might. I don't know of any myself, but religion says not to divorce. A lot of people don't divorce for that reason. So there must be some love-hate relationships where they don't get a divorce because they don't believe it's right. So there must be some that are continuing on, whether they're happy or not. I don't know.
Yeah, it's really interesting. In one way, it's okay because there's like these religious safeguards where they say you can't divorce, so they're encouraging people to work through their problems. But in the other sense, it becomes a prison, a social constructed prison where you can't leave an unhealthy relationship. So once again, with most things in life, it's finding a healthy medium, and the answer usually lies in between, which is to say people need to work on their relationships, but they also need to be able to break them when they realize that it's not going to work and you've exhausted all the efforts.
Yeah.
So in a sense, legally divorcing someone is a social impediment where it's saying you're going to have to go through this whole process. We'll allow you to do it, But say in terms of an annulment, right? Not a divorce, they might require you to go to counseling before the annulment's granted. I don't know. I think it's good that we're encouraging people to do responsible things. How that plays out, though, I'm not so sure. It's very complicated.
Yeah, I don't know. I kind of don't like the idea of marriage at all because of the position it kind of puts I don't know. Like, I guess there's pros and cons.
I've heard all different opinions on it. Like, some people say if you don't marry someone, you're basically saying I can trade you in at any time for a better model.
That's so funny, though, because I don't feel like that's the case at all. Like, I get what they're saying, though, but, like, I don't think that's really, for most people, I don't think that's the case. Because a lot of people cheat on their wives anyway, or their husbands anyway. It doesn't stop anyone, I feel like. That's really set on cheating on their spouse will.
Is not a written on paper thing. That's just a representation of the commitment. And the paper comes with responsibilities and things you put at risk as part of the agreement. You're basically saying, I'm signing away.
Yeah.
I could lose money and things in my life if I decide to end things with you. Yeah, whatever we build together. I think it's 50-50, right? Or in the US. And how they divide things between the two people. When you're agreeing to enter into a legal marriage, you're putting things on the line. You're basically saying, I'm taking an inherent risk, but I accept that risk because I'm committed. So without that, then you just have, it doesn't mean you can't have a commitment, but you don't have anything in jeopardy except your feelings.
I guess that's true. After a certain amount of years, though, even if you're not married, it's kind of like a marriage to the law. Like if someone is like has kids and they've been in a relationship for 7 years and they break up, she can still sue for money and stuff like. So like maybe it's not as set in stone, but they still treat it as a marriage.
I do think you're right. It is viewed that way. There's a lot of stuff, crazy like legal stuff that people don't know about. Like when you're cohabitating and residing with someone, like it's viewed by the legal system in certain ways, even though you don't have a legal agreement. So yeah, it's interesting. Do you ever hear like squatters' rights for like houses?
Yeah, that blew my mind. Someone can stay, like, I don't remember how it went exactly, but someone can stay the night at your house. Maybe it wasn't just one night, maybe like a week or something. And then they could have squatter rights, like where you can't kick them out.
It probably depends, I think, where you are in the US. There was a movie I watched where someone had broken into someone's house while they were on vacation, and they had been living there, and they couldn't kick them out because they had been living there for like 6 months or something. So I don't know if that would apply in that case, because it was a movie, but I found it was funny.
Yeah, that reminds me. It was like a news report I saw. Someone was hard on their luck or something, so a lady let them live in their garage for like a month, but the deal was a month, but they didn't write it down. Anyway, then they had squatter rights. Like she couldn't kick them out. They're like, no, sorry, they lived there.
Yeah.
And she's like, I was helping them. Like, it's my garage. Like, yeah, sorry, according to the law. It was something like that. I would have to look it up to find the actual details.
Oh, by the way, going back to the movie, do you think it was kind of silly that he did the knife thing with the social worker around, knowing that even if he hadn't cut himself, it still would have been perceived as odd, right?
Yeah, I think here's why he did it, though. It's because I totally agree with you. But the reason he did it is because the son kept asking him to do the knife thing. And that alone sounds bad. So the reason he did it was to show her what it was. Like, oh, it's just a trick. So she's not sitting there wondering, like, what the hell is the knife thing with no answer? You know what I mean? So I think in his head, it looks worse to have no explanation than... Yeah, and he didn't know he was going to slice his arm open or he wouldn't have done it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. Because even if the son would have brought it up once, but I think he brought it up multiple times.
Yes, yeah, exactly. Because one time he could have just like, maybe you shouldn't even hear the word knife right. But yeah, if he's multiple times saying, do the knife thing. And he's like, no, don't talk about it. It makes it look super odd. And do you think the movie was sponsored by Monopoly? I don't know if you noticed, but it was everywhere. I felt like
in the beginning of the movie, it said sponsored by Monopoly.
I would believe it. Just a fun thing for those who don't know, John Oliver did a funny running joke about Adam Driver on his show where he pretends like he was obsessed with him and wanted him to punish him in sexual ways. And then on the finale of last season, Adam Driver made a guest appearance for a sketch where he calls into the show all upset about the sketch. And I won't spoil what happens, but it's pretty funny if you want to check it out.
It's funny. I remember that.
I've watched it multiple times, I'll be honest. It's pretty good.
He had, Adam Driver has the same hairstyle he does in Star Wars. You think it would be jarring, but it's not. He's in this movie and he's just wearing a different outfit in this movie. I don't know, it's just jarring.
I wonder if that's really his hairstyle when he, you know what I mean?
He has long hair, right?
Yeah, it's like a to his chin or something. I don't remember now. I can't, let me look him up because I actually don't know. I know it is longer though. It's funny because I'm thinking I need to look up Adam Driver, right? But I started typing John Stamos. Like, what the f? Yeah, it's like a little past his chin.
If Adam Driver's related to Minnie Driver.
They're married, actually. Just kidding. Let's see. They are no relation.
There's only 2 people that I don't have that last name.
I'm still looking it up. I actually don't know. Okay, the short answer is no. They aren't siblings, nor is there a remote familial relation between these two actors.
Must be their stage names then.
Or there's just multiple drivers out there.
They could name their son Uber. Uber driver.
That's funny. Your middle name is Grubhub?
I remember that. Well, that's
funny.
about all I have to say for this feature. I encourage anyone who has any interest in this type of film to watch, because I believe they would enjoy it.
It's a good time all around. And I love that it's a long film and you don't feel it. That's my favorite. I can't stand watching 2 or 3 hour movies and I feel like it's dragging the whole time and I'm like, oh my god, get to the point. This one, it's long and you wouldn't even know. It felt like it was like an hour.
Yeah, I think 2 hours and 7 minutes, something like that.
Yeah.
Well, that's a wrap.
Wow.